Dr. Corinna Freitag is an executive coach, advisor, and speaker with over 30 years of expertise in natural and human sciences through university, industry, and continuing education. She helps chemists and engineers resolve workplace conflict and build professional communication skills to advance their careers and secure their dream jobs. Dr. Corinna Freitag holds a PhD in chemistry, is certified as an executive coach, and received her associate certified coach credential through the International Coaching Federation, the gold standard of professional coaching. She has lived in different countries and worked for over 18 years globally in the automotive and chemical industries in various positions with colleagues on the shop floor up to senior vice presidents, which led to her being the global operational excellence leader for 5+ years. Corinna, it's very good to have you with us today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael.
Well, I've been looking forward to this conversation because I often talk to coaches who are based in the United States, and to have this opportunity to talk with an executive coach who's based in Europe is a real treat. So the first question I have, Corinna, kind of takes you back a few years. What attracted you to executive coaching in the first place?
As you mentioned in the introduction, I worked for many years in the automotive and chemical industry. And in 2018, I came back to Germany from a 3-year work delegation to Asia. And it felt kind of like that I was not so passionate about my work anymore. And I wanted to find out why. And so I played around with like different things. And I also started to work together with a coach. And it took me some time to realize, actually, it took me till 2021, that I wanted to become myself a coach and to help people in the work context.
I've heard this story before where people experience the power of coaching and then become drawn to it. So I'm not surprised to hear that. It seems you've developed a niche to help people deal with conflict in the workplace. Why conflict as a focus?
Yeah, so during the time, I did the 100 coaching hours for the ICF certification. I coached a lot of colleagues from work in exchange, like for a coffee or like lunch.
Mhm.
And during this time, I figured out that I'm not especially good at helping people to solve conflict, also that it really makes fun. And already at that time, I helped a colleague, for example, to resolve like a 1-year conflict in under 3 sessions. And because of this conflict, actually, she had already like stomach issues and wanted to change her job. And afterwards, she was like happy and yeah, no stomach issues anymore and wanted to really stay with her job. And and also kind of like as conflict is an inevitable part of life, I would like to help people to get better at.
That's fascinating, Corinna, that you helped someone who was dealing with a conflict that was a year long and to resolve it in 3 sessions. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about your special talent in this area. What have you found makes it difficult for people to deal with conflict with others and not consider it to just be another part of the workday? As you said, conflict is something
Mhm.
that you're going to encounter in life, but why do some people have such challenges with it?
Yeah, I mean, based on my experience and also my research, there's a big difference, or it's a big difference is that people who can actively listen have like less conflict. Plus, that also like these people kind of like separate conflict into healthy and unhealthy conflict. And because they have like these active listening skills, they don't have so often this unhealthy conflict. And when they have healthy conflict, they don't see it as something bad. Um, because they think it's something good that happens, like to clarify things. And so therefore it also, yeah, it does not bother them and also it does not cost them so much energy. And I mean, for people who find it difficult, so there are also like, in addition, like different patterns that I kind of like see with my clients. So, for example, that they are like very rational and want to solve everything with like facts and logic and are frustrated with others, like being emotional and not rational, which I totally get. I mean, I'm myself a rational person and I would laugh if like every person would be kind of like Commander Spock from Star Trek. But it's not how people are in real life. They are like messy and have emotions. And I mean, the rational mind is a great tool, but not for everything. So, like a hammer is a great tool to hammer a nail into a wall, but not to paint a canvas. So this is like, for example, one pattern. Another pattern is that there are people who want to please everyone, and this makes it hard for them to deal with conflict. Or maybe others, they have this victim mindset and it's kind of like this poor me and it's the fault of the others. And so when people have those kind of patterns or other patterns, then it makes difficult, or these patterns makes it difficult for them to deal with conflict.
There's a lot in your answer that I'm taking away, and one of the items that really stands out to me is this idea of kind of reframing the way you see conflict, which is a common concept in coaching to help our clients reframe. But it seems that through active listening and seeing conflict actually in a different way can really help. What tips do you have for people who are currently struggling with conflict?
So, I mean, with my coaching, I like to use an interdisciplinary approach by combining classical coaching techniques with like my vast experience from university and industry, and also training the client's mental toughness.
Mm.
But for the listener, I would like to share a three-step approach. As this is something they can start to use themselves immediately. And by the way, I learned this approach from the Center for Executive Coaching, and it helps my clients to overcome workplace conflicts they had for months or even years. And actually, the longest conflict a person could solve, one of my clients was like about 7 years.
Wow.
And so it's just like three steps. The first one is to understand the position, style, and world of the other person. It's like, what is their aspiration? What makes them feel validated? How do they think and communicate? What are their kind of like relevant behaviors? How do they make decisions? But also maybe what is their personal situation and what do they say about the conflict and what they would get by resolving or not resolving the conflict. So this is the first thing. And the second thing is that you need to understand your own position. So what do you want to achieve? And what is like your SMART goal, which is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant and time bound?
Mhm.
And also things like where are you willing to be flexible, where not, what can you give up, what is your bottom line, but also maybe what assumptions are you making about the other person, which is like
Mhm.
contributing to the conflict.
Mhm.
And what if you would stop making those assumptions? And then based on those two things, like find this is then the third step, like find the common ground. What are like your common goals? Where do your visions overlap for like what's possible, for example, for your organization or for your team? And what is similar about your worlds? And maybe what are like common elements, success factors, and experiences, or maybe where do your motivations connect with like the other person's? And so you don't have to answer all the questions. These are just like a lot of questions, like to, yeah, that you can start thinking. And usually what happens when I discuss those questions with my clients, that if they answer just like of each section, just maybe two or three of those questions, that this already helps them to solve the conflict.
Right. By answering those questions for themselves, they actually start to feel perhaps a little better about the opportunity to resolve this situation.
Mhm.
Hmm. Well, as you know, I'm quite fond of the Center for Executive Coaching myself. So I appreciate that you've actually been able to use the methods that you learned from
Mhm.
BAEC. to help people resolve conflict. I think you said initially in your answer that one person that you helped had been dealing with the conflict for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
Mm. What do you think held them back from resolving that conflict that you then supported them in breaking through, right? There was some sort of breakthrough there, Corinna. What
Mhm.
led to the breakthrough for them? That's maybe a better question.
Yeah, I think it's different for different people. I mean, for this person, with this like 7 year conflict, I mean, she perceived this other person as difficult,
Hmm.
whereas I think very often she was difficult herself. So
Mm.
it's like all about like the perception. Um, but then also it was that, um, for example, she said kind of like, oh, he never like shares important information with me. And then I asked her kind of like when he had shared information with her, like if she had said thank you or if she had told him that this information would be helpful. And she was kind of like, no. So, and I mean, this is like a very simple thing, but when you are stuck in your own head, then you don't see those things. Or maybe this other conflict, which was like about a year. So that was also very interesting. And that's the reason that I mentioned it's so important, like that you set this SMART goal, because the first expectation uh, for my client was she wanted to get kind of like best friends with with this person, and I asked her kind of like, why do you want to get like best friend? I mean, it's a person at work, and so then she realized no, actually, we only need to have like a respectful relationship at work.
Mm.
And so then I think this shifted her mindset, kind of like then with like further questions that this is doable and she can achieve this.
Thank you very much. That's so interesting, this idea of the SMART goal and having something realistic. I think you help to
Mhm.
uh, challenge her thinking around wanting to have that person as a best friend, and that's one of the ICF coaching competencies is gently challenging our clients at times and helping them to perhaps rethink some of the ideas that they have. So I appreciate that example. I know that you also work with leaders on other aspects of communication other than just conflict, Corinna. What do
Mhm.
you wish leaders would do to communicate better?
I mean, the work I do with my clients around communication is really more about like the rudimentary communication skills
Mhm.
and like for people who really like struggle to interact with others. So it's not so much about like yeah how leaders communicate, and therefore I have to say it would be more kind of like a personal answer for like different leaders I had during my time in the corporate world.
Mhm.
I mean, for sure, they were like with the different leaders where I thought like, hey, I really wish that you would have done this better or communicated this better. But this was really very different, like from manager to manager, and not something general where I can say like, hey, if leaders would be better in communicating this, then this would change the world.
Okay, fair enough. I, I, I'll go ahead and add that one of the things that I've encountered that some leaders are surprised about is how often they have to repeat messages that they want people to understand. That I
Mhm.
think leaders expect sometimes that once they say something, everybody gets it. They remember it from that moment. But it's just not true. Often
Mhm.
leaders have to repeat important messages over and over, and it may feel tedious to them and unnecessary, but that's just reality of people.
Yeah, yeah, this is very interesting. Especially I think, I mean, I think this is not always the case for leaders. I heard this already also like from people in general, like when they were kind of like, I don't know, in meetings or in a project and they were kind of like frustrated where they said, I mentioned this and no one listened. And
Hmm.
then it happens that then maybe another person mentioned it and then people got it. And maybe they just got it because then it was like the second time, or also this person used like other words. And yeah.
Yes, it's a good point. And
Mhm.
you had mentioned earlier in resolving conflict the importance of listening, and
Mhm.
active listening can really make a difference in how people communicate together. Uh, Now you're nearing your 3 years as an executive coach, and I'm curious with the experience that you have in coaching now and running your own coaching practice. Looking back at your first year, would you do anything differently?
Yes, absolutely. I would reach out more to people and would network more and yeah, get like to know their pain points and would spend like less time on things like to trying to create, for example, a perfect website. So it's really about like connecting with people and networking.
That sounds like really good advice, Corinna, and I
Mhm.
hope the newer coaches who are watching this video really think about that. What Corinna is sharing with you, this idea of networking more and getting to know more people and developing what we call it the CEC, your power base, to help support the growth of your new coaching practice. So thank you for sharing that. I'd now like to tap into some experience that you have related to being an executive coach in Europe. There are multiple coaching organizations around the world. Obviously, ICF is extremely well known. Some coaches may not be as aware of the EMCC, which is based in Europe. Uh, from your experience dealing with buyers of executive coaching, are there differences between how they value an ICF credential versus an EMCC credential?
Yeah. I learned this like from another coach a few weeks ago, and I found this really very interesting. Because she said that the ICF certification is the most popular and the most established one, even in Europe. And
Mm.
actually, she has like the MCC certification, but now she goes for the ICF certification. Um, yeah, because this is really the most popular, even in Europe. And the other thing she's shared, what I found really very interesting, that most people know that ICF has value, like this ICF certification, but they do not really know the difference between like the ACC, PCC, and MCC. I found this also very interesting. And maybe one other thing she shared, which I also found very interesting, because she said that she had several coaching trainings like in Europe,
Mhm.
but now she's going through the coaching training via the Center for Executive Coaching. And she said that this is really like the best training she had so far.
I'm
Mm.
really pleased to hear that. We have multiple dedicated instructors on our faculty, and I do believe that they are some of the world's best. And to hear you say that is very encouraging. So to kind of reiterate what you had said about the credentials, it does seem that the ICF is very well known, just as well known in Europe and as it is in the United States, and very well respected. So I'm glad to hear that since I have both ICF and an EMCC credential myself. So then let's get to the last question, Corinna. I've so
Mhm.
appreciated this time with you. I have an interest in understanding what's next for you in your coaching journey.
Yeah, I mean, so far, I work mainly with people like one-on-one.
Mhm.
And especially regarding the work around conflict, I would like to make it accessible like to more people and would like to start a training around this. So, and like for people who either have a conflict that exists only like for months or even years with like a specific person, and which is like a kind of pattern that this conflict arises with like this type of person where they might be not aware of this pattern.
Mm.
And the other thing is that they have like a conflict with all kind of like different types of different people, like such as their work colleagues, their team members, or the managers. And I really would like to yeah, that in this training that people gain practical tools to resolve their current conflict, and that during the trainings they develop like those steps they need to take to solve the conflict, plus that they also will take away a blueprint to prevent future conflicts before they even start. Which means like the training should be kind of like short, script and crisp, but also like fun, and with like a lot of interaction, because this is really from the my experience in industry where I gave like Lean Six Sigma green belt trainings, for example, especially also like during the COVID time and where I had like to transfer in person to like online trainings. So this is my experience that this is the most effective way that people get something out of this training.
I'm excited for you, Corinna, because I actually like to do a lot of training myself along with
Mm.
coaching, and I find it just as enjoyable and rewarding as coaching. It creates diversity in my schedule, which is nice too. One thing that I have found that certain organizations are starting to understand more and more is the value of combining coaching and training together,
Mhm.
which can make for a more meaningful engagement for the participants and help them be accountable to what they've learned in the training. And you're perfectly positioned to do both. So that sounds great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for being here with me today. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, getting a global perspective on executive coaching and talking more about your specialty. How should people get in touch with you, Corinna, if they'd like to learn more about you?
I think the easiest way is really via LinkedIn. So I post there regular content
Mhm.
that they can learn more, but also they can DM me via LinkedIn. And I mean, if they don't have LinkedIn, then like my homepage. And on my homepage, I mean, there's also like the link to my LinkedIn profile, but then also like my email address, for example, that they can contact me.
All right, that's terrific. Well, thank you very much for spending this time with me today and sharing some valuable information as well as insights about your background.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael.
It was my pleasure.